Voters go to the polls in August, and one item on the ballot will be a question to slightly increase the sales tax for improvements needed for the 911 services in Jasper County. Here to talk about this is the 911 Center Executive Director, April Ford. Thanks for joining us today, April.
Thank you for having me.
I know you guys are so busy, especially you in your position, so I really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
So let's just start off with how big of a system 911 is. Towers, radios, the different agencies. It's a lot of moving parts. Talk about, what the sales tax increase will be just to the layperson. What will it help with the 911 Center?
Sure. And the 911 system is a big system. It's radios, phones. We dispatch for 26 agencies in Jasper County, all fire, police, and medical, so there is definitely a lot of moving parts. So the sales tax ballot issue is we're just asking the voters if the 911 Service Board can increase the sales tax rate from 1/10% to 1/4%, which if somebody doesn't understand what that means, if you were spending like $1,000 at the mall or something for Christmas, which would be for your whole family, then that's $1 that the 911 Center currently gets. We're asking to increase that to $2.50. Okay. So that ballot language that's going to be on the August election is actually going to spell out what this is for. There's three things that's primarily for, or that it's for, that's specific. It's for infrastructure. That's the 911 system itself. So that's the center. That's any towers that we do have to erect or that we have to keep up and keep running, and any type of equipment that's at those tower sites. And of course, with tower comes land or lease, and so that's just a big expense. And then of course, just to keep the building going and keep the building maintained. And right now our building is partially underground, but on one side of the building it's just cinder block and bricks, so we just want to make sure that building's secure. The second part of that is we want to fund a countywide public safety radio system. So we have 4 different radio systems in Jasper County currently amongst all of our fire, police, and medical agencies, and that includes states. So the state has a radio system in the county as well, and we want to fund a system that everybody can talk to each other. Unfortunately, on all of that system, there's two systems of that they cannot talk to the other 2 systems. They literally have to have multiple radios in their patrol cars or in the ambulance or in the fire truck, to where if they're working a call together, they could actually talk to one another, or they have to relay through their dispatchers, and that makes it very, very difficult. And as you can imagine, you relay some information, something could get lost or misinterpreted, and we don't want that to happen. So we want to build out a countywide radio system that is interoperable with each other, so that everybody in Jasper County that's in our county being served by the 911 Center can be able to communicate with other agencies. And in Jasper County, we actually have 2 911 centers. The city of Joplin has one for their fire and their police department, but we dispatch all those medical calls at the 911 Center in the county, and so we want to make sure that all of those agencies can talk with each other.
That's going to be a logistical nightmare sometimes.
It can definitely
interoperability, like during the May 22nd tornado.
Absolutely, yes.
There were so many people that came in.
Yeah, all of our agencies that came in from out of state, and then all around the state of Missouri. But a lot of those out of state are just another radio system, that we have to consider. And so the 911 Center has some radios in the back room that allow us to patch channels together just to allow them to talk to each other. But you can't do that with all of the systems.
Didn't there used to be like what they call the black box or something where the agencies would talk to each other? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. There is, and there's still some of that equipment in play today that helps us out when we're on big incidents. And then on the ballot language, the third part is just ensuring the rapid dispatching for 911 calls and non-emergency calls for service, because that takes up about 3/4 of our call volume at the 911 Center. Is a lot of people just aren't comfortable dialing those 3 digits, even though we would prefer that they would dial those 3 digits, because if they call a 10-digit number, like our non-emergency number, they're not on a dedicated line to where we can actually find them and actually be able to dial them back immediately if they weren't able to give us their location or their callback number. And so we want to be able to make sure that we're funding for that, but it's to continue to provide those services and be efficient for the fire, police, and medical agencies that we do dispatch for. And staffing wise, we're just not where we need to be. We really need to be able to staff up and dedicate a call taker. And currently, we operate at a minimum staffing of 4 people, but sometimes we'll have 5 people in the room, and when we do, we have a call taker, but when we don't, it's everybody who's dispatching is handling the phones.
And that doesn't sound like very many people for the volume.
No, it doesn't, and it's hard. So when we have trainees on, you might see more people in there, but we're trying to train them, so we have to have them focus on the console that they're working on, and it would really be nice to be able to just focus on the calls as well.
Right, and so when 911 was developed, cell phones weren't a thing.
Right.
And so now you have a car crash, for instance, and you'll get 20 calls versus before maybe 3 calls. What is that call volume like with cell phones?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So back in 2000, excuse me, in 1994 is whenever they passed the sales tax for the 911 center. So we haven't had any changes in funding since then. And whenever they did that, cell phones were not very well prevalent. They weren't used like they are today.
Bag phone or something.
And things have changed so much. It's not even cell phones now that we're looking at towards the future. It's apps and devices that can contact us like your
Smart
watch.
watches. I dialed 911 the other day on my watch.
Oh, yeah, and it
I
happens.
did not even know I was doing it. And I looked at it and I went, how do I stop this? And I couldn't figure it out.
It happens all the time. So, and by accident, but people can text 911 as well. And
Tell us about that.
So where we used to get, 1 or 2, maybe 3 calls for a traffic accident, if it's on I-44, we could get up, in the 20s on our calls. And that's not all the time, but it definitely, it hits the center, and we don't have 20 staff members to answer calls. So they're literally picking up the call and asking just a few questions to make sure it's the same accident, make sure that the caller's not involved and that they don't have better information than the other caller, and then trying to get off the line.
And that takes a lot of work.
It does.
A lot of people.
Yeah. And then while you're doing that, you might get a text message in. And so we are taking text messages. They're not as many. So our text message call, or I say it is text message call volume, but that's really kind of what it is. So our text message volume is really low, which has made it a lot easier on us because we really have tried to promote and educate people that you need to call when you can, you text when you can't. You don't want you on the highway texting whenever you're driving by an accident. We want you calling. Plus, we get better information. So texting takes a lot longer, and you can take a dispatcher, and they could be on a text message for over an hour. If somebody is in danger and they're trying to hide from an assailant or something, somebody maybe who's come into their home and they're texting us. So that text can go on for as long as we keep that text session open, where a call, we can actually get the information quickly and either remain on the line till help arrives or get off the phone really quickly so they can move on to somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I never even thought about the text 911, but I guess that'd be good in domestic violence situations where they don't want the abuser to know that they're calling in.
Right.
Wow. And so I was reviewing the minutes of your last 911 board meeting. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of acronyms and systems, and so there's one that kind of struck me, the issue of communication between departments. Like you said, some of them don't talk to each other via the radio systems. Why is it that some are on a system and some aren't?
So I think it's really about funding. I mean, especially whenever you talk about our rural fire departments and districts that just don't have a lot of funding coming in, or they have enough funding to operate their department. But whenever it comes to buying radios or for building a simple radio system countywide can be in the millions, and we fully anticipate that that's what this is going to look like. Nobody really has that kind of money from one individual department. So if it comes to putting bunker gear into the department to add for the firefighters that need that bunker gear for safety responding to the fires, or putting in new radios when they already have radios that work, they're just not interoperable. I think it makes it hard to make those decisions if they can't find the money. And grants have dwindled down tremendously since 9/11, and that's made it really difficult. There was a big push at 9/11 right after September 11th happened, and that big push was about interoperability and making sure everybody was on the same page as far as being able to communicate. And we watched the state really grow a system statewide, but it was specifically for the state of Missouri for Highway Patrol and for Missouri Department of Transportation.
Is that the MOSWIN thing?
Yeah, and I'll be able to get into that a little bit more too. But as they built that system out, there would be some agencies that could come on and some agencies that couldn't unless they had the funding to build up that system in their county. And that's kind of where we've been at, is we just haven't had the money to build up that system, so we've operated with what we did have.
And what does it take to operate that system?
If you want coverage, if you want good coverage, and absolutely we want good coverage. We want good portable coverage, which means just a handheld radio for our first responders. Then you've got to put up towers that they come in and do a study, and you've got to put up towers that make sense to provide that coverage and that overlapping service, so that anywhere that they are, that they can have good ability to get out, just like cell phones.
Because it's a distance
from
the tower to the radio.
Right. And people, I'm sure, who've used cell phones for years understand that we used to get disconnected when we run out of tower coverage.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
And that's the same way the radio system works currently, is if you run out of tower coverage, you get disconnected pretty much. I mean, you don't even realize that you key up to talk, and you either get a noise telling you that you're out of range, or you have your dispatcher keying back up over the radio telling you that they can't copy you, that your traffic is unreadable, or that they can't hear you. And so that's the situation that we're in. And you can imagine a police officer on the roadside, involved in a maybe he's out on a traffic stop with an individual who's trying to run, or maybe there's somebody who's trying to fight him, or they're on a call, or a fireman or EMS roadside with a traffic accident trying to provide service to a patient, and you've got traffic and they need traffic help, and they try to key up on the radio and they can't get out. It's a very sad and scary situation for them, but it's also very scary for the dispatchers, because they want to make sure that they're secure and that they've got that communication open, and when they're out of range, they just don't.
It's really scary for the officers, I know.
It is.
My full disclosure, my husband was a police officer for a long time, and communication with dispatch was huge.
Yeah.
And when things were going on, if he couldn't hear them or they couldn't hear him, you don't know what's happening to him.
Right.
So,
that's a scary situation.
And speaking of situations, handling that ability to handle, I looked at your website and we were talking about this. 73% of your current staff are women. Right. And nationwide, the average was 55%. So what makes a good communications or dispatcher?
Sure.
What are the personality traits that make a good dispatcher?
Sure. There's some interesting things I can tell you. I can tell you right off the bat the normal things, like somebody who has a service heart, somebody who wants to help people. And it sounds so cliche sometimes, and I know when people come in an interview, they hate saying that because they're like, everybody says this. It's true. Right. You have to love people. You have to love your community. You have to want to take care of people. And that's men, women. It doesn't matter who that is. Sure. If you have a service heart, and a lot of people, we notice a lot of people tend to go towards the field and dispatch, or to provide a service from the field, either a police officer or paramedic or firefighter. But I think it's a little bit different on the phone. I was married to an officer also years and years. And I think you just have to be able to really visualize the job. And so when we interview people, we're looking for that ability to visualize. So we ask them to tell us stories, because we want to know that they can elaborate and actually spell a story for us, or spell out a story and make us see it in our own minds, because that's really what we do 24/7 while we're working. Is we're not on scene. We don't see what's happening, but we have to know from what the caller tells us what questions to ask to be able to build that story and build that scene, so that we can make sure our responders respond safe, and we can make sure that caller stays safe and any bystanders stay safe. And so I really think this is another funny thing. I say all the time, it's about multitasking, and yet everybody can multitask to a certain extent. Sure. But the job is definitely not for everybody, and we have had times when we've been 50-50, where we've had just as many men as women. And right now it just happens to be a different time where we have a little bit more women than men. But either way, they both are great. I can tell you, I'm a fast talker. A lot of dispatchers are fast talkers, and so it makes it really interesting. But men have a tendency to stay a lot calmer on the radio. Their radio voice is a little bit different, where women have a lot more inflection in their voice. And I think that sometimes can be good, and it can be bad. So we just, interviewing, it's really about listening to people talk to us, making sure that they have that heart for the job, and then they have that ability to have empathy and compassion, and are willing to go that extra mile. So we look for their work history to make sure that they're willing to do that.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. And you said you're short-staffed right now.
Yeah.
How many openings do you guys?
We actually have 2 openings. We're about to have a third, because we're moving somebody into the administrative side. And it's tough, and they're full-time openings. It's a great job. It's great benefits. It's probably the best thing I can say about it is, if you're one person who loves anything public safety, but you also love taking care of people, it's so rewarding. Our job, we do a lot of the things on the phone that they're doing in the field. So our dispatchers provide CPR, pre-arrival instructions. We deliver babies on the phone with the caller. So we walk them through instructions to do all of those things. it can be very difficult.
Right.
Because you're teaching a layperson over the phone how to do those things. And you have to trust them and they have to trust you.
You have to have patience.
Right. You have to be very, very patient. And you have to have compassion through their frustration and their time of their most critical time in their life. Most people don't call 911 but once in their life, and a lot of people
or
never
accidentally.
call. Right. Or accidentally. And you just have to be able to walk through that with them and let them know that you're there to help them. And I think for anybody who's looking, that's definitely what we're looking for, is people who are willing to do that.
And so to keep up with technology and, the changing in radio systems and to help all the departments, that costs money,
It does.
Obviously. And,
It does.
Back to the sales tax, it's minimal for the people who are, shopping or buying whatever. But it's of great importance and need.
Absolutely. This year alone, we have an end-of-life notice on our phone system. And that's how we take 911 calls, and so we're looking to replace that system. And our original quotes came in at 1.1 million, and now we've dwindled it down, and we've asked them to sharpen their pencil, and we're trying to get it down. But we want to build out an infrastructure where we have redundancy and we have another agency that can back us up. And it's always been us and Joplin backing each other up, but we're both so overwhelmed that we need somebody to back us up. And so Springfield makes a lot of sense to be able to back us up. And so we're trying to build out our equipment to them. They also need backup, and so they're looking to us as well. And something like that is just so important to know, that if we had another, incident, disaster,
Sure.
anything that was to happen where we had to evacuate because the center was damaged, or people, were in danger because of a fire or something, we want to make sure that somebody can take our traffic and our calls until we get set up in another location.
Hacking is a big deal as well.
Sure.
And I'm sure your agency is no stranger to, software invasions, if you will. What are you guys doing about it?
So there's a lot of cyber security that we have to meet, and a lot of rules and backside equipment that we're always purchasing, and software that we're always purchasing. And right now there's just a lot of new structure and rules that are coming out, especially with broadband growing nationwide. And so we're really trying to keep up with that. And those changes are going to cost money. We have a great IT department that works with us, and our group of people inside the center that work in the system side are always watching. But there have been agencies that recently were just recently attacked. And it's, we're watching always. We get text messages from other directors, or we send text messages out to other directors saying, watch for this. But it's really about being just smart. And I would say that to anybody, not just 911 centers, but anybody. Don't open up an email link that you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, just those simple things are so important, because anything like that can get in.
Thank you so much for helping explain it to the layperson, because it is complicated. I really appreciate you being here. When we come back, we'll hear from Sheriff Randy Kaiser about the Jasper County Jail Expansion Project.
Use your fingerprint, your face, or a code. At home or work or on the road. 2 steps are safer than 1 or 3 or 4. And keeping data safe is so much fun. Authenticate, strong, authenticate. Make your logins extra safe. Protect your identity from tragic fate. Authenticate, strong, authenticate.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Jasper County Sheriff Randy Kaiser. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
I know you're just as busy as well, so
Sure.
we appreciate it. So we're talking about the groundbreaking on the new jail, expansion, if you will.
Yeah.
So talk about that and where you are in the process.
Yeah, so we broke ground in September of last year. We're roughly about halfway through. They're just now putting the roof on and getting it ready to get it dried in, and so it'll really start taking off after that. Once the expansion project's done, then they're going to come back into the current facility and do a little remodeling in there as well, and then anticipating being finished up in probably January of 22.
Oh,
here in about 6 months. Yeah,
actually, that's not far away.
it'll be right around the corner. Yeah.
And what will that jail expansion mean for inmates? Not just inmates, but the staff and the county. What?
Yeah, so overcrowding in the jail has been a topic of conversation in Jasper County for as long as most people can remember. So we're super excited to have the opportunity to expand the bed space. We'll be expanding by about 100 beds in the facility. We'll be able to address some really pressing concerns that we've had for a long time. And for example, one of those pressing concerns is that In our facility currently, we have exactly one professional visitation room. In other words, a contact visitation room where an attorney or a probation parole officer would meet with his client. And, at times we have upwards of 300 inmates. So having just one room for that obviously presents a significant problem as far as being able to keep the flow of professionals coming through there. So we're going to be able to address that. We're going to be able to address some issues that we had with visitation as well, and also open up for some opportunities for some programming space.
And increased size also means the increase in number of prisoners. What does that mean for your staff? How will you be able to increase your staff, or will you?
Yeah, we're obviously hopeful that we'll be able to increase our staff. We have that kind of in the plan of this expansion. We'll be adding on obviously quite a bit of square footage, so we'll need additional staff. As we fill that square footage, we'll need that additional staff to help govern that. So we're just going to kind of address that as we come to it, but we do have plans in place.
Yeah, because right now every business that I've heard of, they have trouble keeping staff or getting up to speed now.
That's right.
That the pandemic's, I guess, not over, but it's subsiding. So
it can be especially difficult in law enforcement to find good qualified individuals that want to work in that field, and so we are addressing those challenges in a variety of different ways. But yeah, we certainly recognize that.
And they have to be the right kind of person too. You
That's
guys
right.
have a pretty good background check and a significant process that they have to go through.
Yeah, it has to be somebody who has an interest in being in law enforcement and then is able to meet the physical demands and the background requirements that come with that. So there's a lot to it. But we like I said, we're addressing some of those challenges in different ways, trying to get good recruits.
Well, good. And your annual report, and you post that online every year, it talks about a rehab program within the jail. Talk about your rehab program and what's going to be possible.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm most excited about with our expansion project. 90% of everybody that's in the county jail will return to the community at some point or another. It has occurred to me years ago that there's individuals who go into our jail, and by the way, well over 85-90% of everybody in there is in there because of some sort of addiction problem, usually an addiction to drugs. And a lot of those people don't want to be addicted. Right. They commit a crime that relates to their addiction, and they spend a year or more in jail waiting to go to court, and then return to the community, and they're really not any better off than they were before. One of the things that we thought would be a great idea is to provide treatment while they're sitting in county jail, rather than spend that time doing essentially nothing to help with their treatment issue or their addiction issues. We thought it might be a good idea to use that opportunity to offer some treatment for those that want it. Obviously, there's going to be some that don't care, but there are a lot who truly want to change the course of their lives. And before, we were limited by space. We couldn't. We had a lot of people who want to come in and offer these programs, but we just didn't have the space for it, and so we would have to turn them away. We have this expansion is specifically set up to afford those people the opportunity to come in and provide that treatment.
Like
and,
AA providers?
AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery. There's just tons of different programs out there that are specifically oriented towards changing the direction of people's lives by changing the decisions that they make. We have some of our staff is educated in specific type of behavioral training to help people in these programs to change the course of their lives. And like I said, it really comes down to just a matter of space, and we're finally getting around that hurdle.
That's really great for us. And some people who are dealing with addiction also have mental health issues.
That's right.
And you see probably mental health patients who commit crimes, and it's related to a mental health issue.
That's right.
What do you guys do to help that?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the single largest housing facility for those that are mentally ill is the Sheriff's Department jail, which is sad, and it's a challenge that we have because obviously we're we're staffed and set up to be a jail. We're not really equipped to handle people who are in mental health crisis. Right. It's unfortunate that people who are in crisis a lot of times have their Medicaid shut off when they enter into the facility. Right. And so now we have the added challenge of the money, money side of it, to afford them that opportunities for treatment. So one of the things that we have been doing is partnering with our community mental health care provider and researching some ways that we can provide services in the jail to help those folks out.
Yeah, because one goes hand in hand with the other typically.
Absolutely does,
the addiction and the mental health issues.
Absolutely does, yes.
And it's good that you've recognized that.
Yeah, and we have a lot of great partners in the community that are helping us with this. It's been something that we have, over the course of time, been figuring out ways that we can address this problem and solve this problem in a kind of a cooperative way. I can't solve the problem as the sheriff. Ozark can't solve the problem by themselves without cooperation from everybody in the justice system. So we're working on a collaborative solution for that problem.
That's good. And COVID changed so many people's lives. I'm sure with you guys it changed a lot.
It did. It changed a lot.
And there was concern about, COVID spreading in jails because of the close quarters.
Yeah.
What changes did you guys make, or were you able to?
We made a lot of changes specifically in the jail. One of the things that we did was we stopped a lot of the foot traffic that came in, everything from professional visits to church visits and those kinds of things. We started doing a lot of stuff online that we had. Even visitation now, which is this development's kind of one that we'll probably stick with in years to come. We now are able to do visitation with inmates and their families by video. And so that reduces the need for the family to come into our building. We'll probably continue that just because it works so well. It's convenient for people to stay at home and log into their computer or their phone and visit with their loved one without having to travel. And so
is it costly?
It's not costly. There is a cost associated with it, but it's a nominal cost, and it's equivalent to what a phone call would be to the jail. So it's not too bad. And they can also text their loved one in the jail using a kiosk system. So there's just a lot of conveniences there that have come about as a result of this that we'll probably stick with in the future.
And the cost helps pay for the system and the internet and all
That's
of
right. Yep, the connections and the software and all that. That's right.
Okay. And so I understand you have a new staff member.
We do.
His name's Charlie.
We do. That's right.
How is Charlie working out? What does Charlie do?
Well, Charlie is our canine. He's not a certified therapy dog, but we call him a therapy dog because he's therapy for everybody, right? He wandered onto our parking lot as a puppy. We tried to find his owner and his home, and we had no luck, so we just adopted him at the jail. And he provides, as dogs do, especially as puppies do, provides a lot of good entertainment and therapy for both the inmates and the staff. The inmates, it's something different. Sure. It's something that kind of breaks that routine and has a lot of value in that regard. And of course, the staff, enjoys coming to work and having the chance to, visit with Charlie every day, and he enjoys it as well.
And he makes people happy.
He absolutely makes people happy.
Which is a form of therapy itself.
Absolutely right. Yes.
They use animals all the time in nursing homes and hospitals and to help
right.
those patients' spirits. I bet that works.
It works great. It works. He's very popular.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so great. I really, I always tell my guests thank you, but I really mean it. You and April Ford, Executive Director of the 911 Call Center. This is Newsmakers on KGCS TV from the Ruth Copeland Studios here at Missouri Southern State University, and I'm Bobby Pottruff. We'll see you again soon.